Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm so excited because today we're gonna be chatting about flat lay styling. I'm actually here in my brand new studio that we opened up about 2 months ago. I haven't really got to shoot much in here yet, but I have been shooting lots of flat lays. So today I'm gonna go over how to style with flowers, how to play with different calligraphy suites, and I also have some Belle shoes that we'll be styling as well. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. So here I have the flowers that I'm gonna be playing with, some calligraphy suites. So I'll link the vendors down below, and then some Belle shoes here. And with all of these vendors, I simply just reached out to them, told them that I love their work, and they were glad to send me stuff. The florals I did pay for because of course they cost money and I didn't want her to give them to me for free. But everything else was pretty much lent to me. Maybe I just had to pay the shipping costs. So don't hesitate to reach out to your favorite vendors. I'm sure they're more than glad to send you their work because they get the photographs out of it too. So when I show up on a wedding day, typically I get the bride to give me all of her jewelry. So I'll grab her bracelet, her earrings. I'll make sure to grab her engagement ring, and then I'll grab her wedding band as well. If she has her husband's ring, I'll grab that as well. And then I also grab the veil. I love using the veil to style, especially for the shoes. It just looks really beautiful when the shoes are sitting in the tulle. So it's just nice to use what you already have. And then if they don't have a lot of elements, then you can always bring in your own elements, add in some extra little things. But typically I try to only use the brides just because I know that every detail was thought of and I don't want to take those out of the shots. So first I'll start with the invitation suite, and then I have a bunch of mats, all these different colored mats. I get them from Locust collection, which is my favorite because they roll up. So they roll up nice and tight into a tube, and then that's great for styling and also makes it easier just to carry them around on the wedding day. So typically after I've seen the bride's suite and seen the colors that she's chose for her wedding day, I'll choose one of the mats that fit that color theme best. And so because this one has a lot of pinks and soft tones, then I know that I'm most likely gonna choose something that's also very soft, maybe pink or neutral. So I really love this gold mat from Locust collection. I just think it's super timeless, and I love that sheen that you get from it as well. It kind of photographs differently in just the way that the light hits it. And then there's pink on the other side, which looks really beautiful as well. So I'm most likely gonna use this gold. And I also always bring this circle reflector. I have a little stand for it. I don't need to bring a stand for the wedding day just because that would take a lot more work to set up. But it is nice to have this reflector. That way I can bounce all of the window light back onto the flat lay. Otherwise this side could get really shadowy since there is no window coming from that side. So this reflector will really help bounce that light back. So first what I'm gonna do is start off by just placing out the stationery, figuring out the type of order that I want it to go in. Usually I'll start off with a pretty formal layout first, and then I can kind of move it around. I could do more of a messy type look, but usually I just start off with a traditional, so you can see the calligraphy at all times. I think that's important too, because a lot of calligraphers, they want the calligraphy to be shown, and of course the bride wants that to be shown as well. So making sure that when you're laying it out, you're not hiding any of that. So after I've got the calligraphy somewhat set up, I'll go ahead and add some of these acrylic blocks. And I just bought these off Amazon. They weren't that expensive. And this adds more dimension to the photograph. So now when I start elevating things, you can add more dimension, and then it's nice because I can also kind of overlay it over top of certain calligraphy pieces without it covering the lettering. So even right here, I can move this piece over so it covers that gap, kind of connecting all the pieces. And then I do try to keep the spaces fairly the same width all throughout, so that way it looks consistent. And then sometimes I'll even add the envelope and just kind of sneak the calligraphy in there, but I'm not hiding any of the words, so you can still see everything on there. But it's just a nice little layering detail. So once I have the stationery all laid out, then I'll go ahead and add the ring details. So I want to make sure that I get all of the bride's details in there before I start adding florals or anything else to fill in the gaps. So here I have her beautiful ring. So sometimes it's nice to just leave it on its own. That looks great just on the mat, and then you add some flowers in there. Or I have all of these ring boxes over here, which I can add as well. So it's purple, looks nice. Sometimes adding like a color that pops looks really cool. I do have these vintage ring boxes as well, which can look really beautiful. And these smaller ones. These square ones are the Mrs. boxes, so they're a little bit more expensive. But I did find this oval one off of Etsy. And this looks really timeless and elegant, so it's nice for some modern details. Sometimes I'll add in all of the jewelry for the initial shot, but sometimes I'll just photograph these pieces on their own, maybe just laying on the veil instead and do some close-ups of them, just kind of laying on the veil. But other times it's nice because it does fill in the piece. I usually place the earrings at a different height as well, so they're not right next to each other, but they are a little bit apart. And then I'll go ahead and play with the flowers. Most of the time, less is better. You don't want to go too crazy with these flowers. And then if you just pull out the flowers gently, that will open it up a bit more. You could even pick out this middle section, which I believe it will make it look, it's more yellow inside of there. So I'm gonna leave that. And if there's any dead pieces, you can just kind of rip them off. Now I usually message the florist in advance, and I'll ask her to bring extra loose florals for me on the wedding day. So that way I can style the bride's details. So it is best if you reach out and you specifically ask for some florals. Little elements like this can be really nice if you just kind of let them fall. Sometimes it can be too much too, so just kind of add them and then take another look. I love more of the simple flowers as well. This might be too much green for this flat lay because there's a lot of pinks. So just remembering that you're trying to go with the color palette and match everything. But I do have some of these white flowers that should look nice. And usually I try to group things. So if I have one rose here, then I'd want two roses together over here. Or if I have two roses over here, I'd probably have three, or a single rose over here. So just balancing everything out. You don't want to have 1, 2, 3 all separate like that. You kind of want to make little groups, and that'll balance out the flat lay. Now this is a really beautiful flower. It's a little bit dead because it's from yesterday. But if this was on the actual day, then it would look really nice. Just having like a small detail like that. I really like the color of those. Sometimes I'll even grab leaves off the stems and then add them in afterwards. So it looks like it's attached to the flower, but it's actually not. But that's a nice way to add in some greenery as well. Now this isn't exactly how I would end it, just because I I'd probably want more florals, or could even add in a shoe, something like that. Could add a shoe up here. It's not a bad idea to have the shoe going through the flat lay. It can look really nice sometimes. But I don't have a lot of florals to work with this color palette, just because this is from yesterday, these flowers. But typically how I would rate and meter for this, because I'm shooting film, I would have the light meter just hovering above the flat lay and a little bit farther from the window, because if I meter right where the window's light is coming in, then it's probably gonna give me a bigger reading. But if I come to this side where there's more shadow, then it could be slightly different. And I'm always trying to meter for the shadows, especially with Fuji 400. It likes a lot of light. So I have 200 set on my light meter. I probably put this at 4.0, even 5.6, and maybe I would set up a tripod. At 5.6 right now, it's giving me a 40th of a second. So if I was to shoot this handheld, then I probably need to do 4.0 at a 60th. And so typically I just hold the light meter straight out with the bulb in and just facing up towards the camera at the angle that I would be shooting. So because I'm gonna be shooting this from above, then I can just put the light meter in that spot and meter for that. If I was shooting on an angle, maybe getting some side angles of the details of the flowers of the ring, then I would just make sure to turn that meter in the direction that I'm shooting. Now I wouldn't want to hold it from this way because I'll be blocking all of the light that's coming in from this side here. So if I hold it on this side, then I'm not blocking that light and I'll get the correct metering. Otherwise, this is going to give me a way lower shutter speed and I'm probably going to overexpose it by a lot. So make sure that you're holding it so that your arm and your body isn't blocking that window light and you're getting the correct exposure. Now, after I've gotten an overhead shot of the stationary suite, I'll usually shoot it in sections as well. So rather than getting just one full piece of the stationary suite, I'll start breaking it down. And then I'll also go in and shoot the ring directly on the stationary. And I'll either have it in the ring box or just set it outside of the ring box, just directly on the stationary. Probably on their names will look nicest, and that way you can come in and get a really nice close-up shot. Now, when I'm shooting this on a wedding day, I do try to find a window and shoot directly next to it. So I'll set up everything right next to the window and just make sure that I have a good amount of light hitting the flat lay. Sometimes I will take the whole board outside as well and just shoot all the details outside, but that does make it a lot harder if it's really windy or if it's really hot outside. So in that case, you want to make sure that you do have a tripod, especially if you're shooting film. If you're shooting digital, there's a lot more flexibility. You can just bump up that ISO, but with film, you always want to carry around a tripod. So after I've shot the stationary, then I usually move on to the shoes and then shooting the details by themselves. Now this is when the veil can come in really handy and just add that beautiful soft texture. This veil hasn't been steamed, so it might not look as nice. But if you have a really nice styling mat, usually that can do the trick as well. So I usually do a few different positions. I usually like to have one shoe in front. I don't always, shoot the earrings with it, just depends. And then you can add in some florals, following that rule of, 2 on one side, and then 1 would just be here, or 3 and 2, just to balance things out. And then you could also tip one like that and shoot it from a higher angle. And then you can also have them both turned in towards each other, just like this. And then you would shoot this from an above angle and either just have them sitting on the veil, or again, adding in the accessories, maybe adding in some flowers. And obviously I would make sure that those are facing upright towards the camera. So I'm just gonna go ahead and meter here in the shadows. I'm gonna shoot these probably from about there. Not a complete overhead shot, but a little bit on an angle. So I'm just gonna meter in the shadows, shooting Fuji 400. And I'm probably gonna shoot this at 2.8. Oops. So it is fairly dark in here. Could probably get away with shooting a 60th at 2.8. But I really do like my Fuji to be exposed a lot. So I probably have to shoot this at 2.0 at a 60th if I wanted to shoot handheld. When it comes to knowing what aperture to shoot your flat lays at, typically for shoes I'm shooting at 2.0 or 2.8 on my Contax. I just find that it gives me a really nice shallow depth of field and just that dreamy effect, which I like with the shoes. But if you are shooting stationary and you are doing an overhead shot, typically 4.0, 5.6, the higher the better, so that way you can make sure you get all the lettering and everything in focus. And then when it comes to ring detail shots, especially with the close-up filters, most likely 4.0 or 5.6, unless you really want it super shallow. But otherwise, to get all the details, then you do want to have a higher aperture. Well, I hope that this video was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or any topics that you'd like me to do in the next videos, make sure to put those below. Don't forget to subscribe. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video.